Okay, so first topic of the show, we're staying on topic with the Bucks, but just the new age Bucks, is Giannis and Dame. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but last year they won 49 games, and this year they're 38 and 30. It's going to be an uphill battle for them to get to 50 wins. How do you think this duo is going to be viewed when it's all said and done, when they aren't on the same team together? Do you think it will be viewed as a success or as a failure?
I'd like to start this first off by saying, Joel, your skin looks incredible. Something about
Thank
this
you.
lighting, something about what's going on right now. You look amazing. Secondly, to talk about Giannis and Dame, we can't talk about this being a success if they don't win a championship. The fact that Giannis had a championship with Middleton, with Drew Holiday, with Brooke Lopez, with Bobby Portis, we were obviously anticipating a lot more when Damian Lillard came to town. Now, when Damian Lillard and Giannis are on the court with one another, Dame is not the most efficient version of himself, averaging 43% from the field, 36% from three. It's not the greatest, but he's averaging 24 points a game, about 6 assists. It's good production, no doubt about it. But again, when you look at what he was giving you with the Portland Trail Blazers, one of the most efficient three-point shooters on insane volume. We're talking about legitimately the second, third, at worst, top five shooters in the history of this game. Damian Lillard, you anticipated him with Giannis would be immediate success. And last year, although Damian wasn't the greatest version of himself, they won a lot of games. And that was with two head coaches. That was with a lot going on in the locker room and them being one of the worst defenses in the league, even though they prided themselves on that. And so then this season, now you have Damian Lillard playing up to standard of what you anticipated. But now the team's not winning that many basketball games as opposed to last year. But the two have been great. That's really what you can ask for. Dame has been awesome, and Giannis has been incredible this season. I don't think that anybody is shocked by that. I think what we're more shocked is that the Milwaukee Bucks have been underwhelming for a majority of the two's tenure. 2-5 in their last 7, if I'm not mistaken, are going up against my Lakers tonight with basically everybody out. This is a must win for them. But again, you can't look at this tenure as a positive one if the two don't deliver a championship when you moved off of Drew to go get Dame and Drew sitting on a championship and potentially two at the end of the season.
Yeah, man. It's undoubtedly, without a shadow of a doubt, a complete failure. This duo it's bad. I mean, this duo doesn't fit. I think on paper it fits. I remember when the trade first happened and we made our duos list, we're like, this is the most talented duo in the NBA. And shit, there's people on this panel who a couple of weeks ago had them as a better duo than the Jays, who I think have shown throughout their career to fit pretty well together, if you do ask me. I don't know.
Throughout
Maybe
their
I'm just
career?
making that up.
Interesting.
Shout out to Carson from Nerd Session. Maybe not shout out to Carson, now that I'm thinking about it, because he also had Giannis and Dame over the Jays, which, I mean, it continues to blow my mind.
Not me, Dallas. Not me.
Not you, Riv, because you know ball. But he put up some stats per 75 possessions. Without Giannis, you're expecting Dame to go out there and ball, right? Like, it's no surprise it's no surprise Dame is averaging more points per game with Giannis off the court, right? He's going to have the ball more. He's going to have more responsibility. He averages 31 without Giannis per 75 possessions. That goes down to 22 points per game with Giannis on the court. The true shooting drops 3 percentage points. But I think what's most alarming and most shocking is his assists drop by over 2 assists per game when Giannis is off the court. So this on paper felt like a perfect pick and roll combination, a perfect pick and roll duo for Giannis being a big, Dame being a lead guard who can pull it from three, who could also attack and get downhill at the rim. But it hasn't been that, right? And even their first year, Adrian Griffin was 30-13 before he got fired. Doc Rivers comes in. He's been like 15 or so games over 500 if you go from last year to this year. So nothing special. And I do think you can make the argument, right? The team isn't great. And I think that's completely fair, right? This is not some team that when you look at the role players, you have super high level guys. But also, Dame and Giannis have been mostly healthy this year. Of course, Giannis got banged up last year. And I think for what we were expecting from them, it's probably a little underwhelming. And I don't think any of us would be surprised if they even got bounced in the first round. I know I have really no shadow of a doubt that at most they're going to get to the second round. I don't think they stand much of a chance against Cleveland. I don't think they stand much of a chance against the Boston Celtics. Of course, if they have better role players around them, you can make the argument. I don't think they're the sole reason why. But like Drew mentioned, you traded for Dame to win a championship. You traded for Dame because you're like, this is the missing piece. We had Drew and he was great, but we need to get better. And they really haven't. If anything, they've gotten a bit worse.
Does anybody realize when they, first of all, like you mentioned, Dels, we know ball, man, and having them over the Jays is crazy to me. I don't know why we can put those guys with no rings over guys with rings. That's just beyond me. And I'm a ring merchant. I love championship rings. Yeah, Dame numbers without Giannis are stupid. Like, they're exactly what you get from him in Portland, like the 32 points a game and all that. The efficiencies there, like Dame without Giannis is the Dame you see in Portland. Has anybody ever noticed, like ever actually watched the Dame and Giannis pick and roll and noticed something out of both of them? Has anybody noticed that one actually can't set good screens and the other isn't that good of a passer? I think that is a pretty important part in a duo like that working, a big man and a guard. It's why people love to put big men in hypotheticals with Trae Young, because Trae Young is one of the best passers in the association. He's a guy that can make damn near every pass in the book. It's why you want a lob threat with Luka, because he is also another guy. You can make every pass in the book. But Dame and Giannis, their pick and roll, which we thought, of course this is hindsight, but we thought when they got paired together, we thought it'd be magic. We thought it'd be electric. But as you start to watch them, you start to realize Giannis doesn't really do big man things that you want in that type of pick and roll environment. And Dame isn't really the passer you want. He's looking to score. Like, off that pick and roll mismatch, I need to go get this bucket. Giannis is more of a set a half screen, kind of push off from it. And he doesn't really roll too much, or he's not a strong roller. I think that is probably one of their issues in their pick and roll. And I think in Milwaukee, it's more the defense that's the problem. Like, I think defensively, they're just not a good unit that doesn't have the proper personnel around them. You know what I'm saying? Dame isn't that good of a defender. They have Brook down there, they have Giannis down there, but nothing really strengthening on the wing. And their depth is honestly laughable. Like, it's not something you're scared of. So, when you look at Cleveland, you look at Boston, you look at two teams with high-level depth, you look at two teams with high-level starting fives. The Bucks are not in those categories in terms of a high-level starting five, in terms of high-level depth. Even with the Knicks starting five, I think is better than Milwaukee's starting five. But this idea of Dame and Giannis was supposed to be better than what you expected. Drew's talking about a championship. Damn, they ain't even make it to the ECF. And it's unfortunate because I want to give them some grace because they got hurt last year. They got hurt against Indiana. So they didn't really get a chance to show it in the playoffs. Was it Indiana? It was Indiana. Yes, they got hurt against Indiana. So they didn't get a chance to really show what they can do. Dame played pretty well against Indiana in the playoffs from what I remember. But now this year, you're looking at it, they're going into the playoffs, like Dell's mentioned, either Indiana or New York. Those are two series where they can realistically lose, but they can also win those two series, but you're not 100% confident. And then against Cleveland and against Boston, how those two teams have showed you against Milwaukee, you're not going to pick Milwaukee against either one of those teams, no matter the star power.
I think no matter how you kind of spin it, this is a duo. I myself muted for a second. I was like, this is a duo that won't be huge successful. And it's I can't catch a breaks in these.
I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry. It's Riv. He's an asshole. And
what?
John, can you believe this?
I'm sorry. And I apologize to you. Man to man. John, man to man, I sincerely apologize. I'd love to hear what you have to say about the Bucks.
Accountability.
Okay. We're not going to view this as a successful duo, and I agree with both you, Drew, and you as well, Riv, where we expected this duo to kind of be one that really would synchronize and play well off one another, but it's kind of quite clear that these are two offensive engines that are best running the show themselves. And that sacrifice has been a really clunky one at times, the two of them on the floor. And the issue has been, even when you take Giannis out the game, they're 7 points worse per 100 possessions in Dame-only lineups without Giannis. And you look at the defense, which has been better this year in the offense per rating. It's not one that you trust because it's so reliant on Giannis to control everything. And a lot of the perimeter defenders, like Dame, off the ball are stagnant and they ball watch. So it's a very easy team to exploit on that end. And when you look at the Eastern Conference right now, they're matched up against the Pacers in a 4-5 matchup, the exact team they played last year without Giannis. And the tough part about this conversation is that we haven't seen Giannis healthy in the playoffs for an entire series since 2022. It's been over 3 years now. So you look at that matchup and you feel like Indiana's lineup just fits way better off of one another, whereas the Bucks don't quite have an identity and they don't have a 5-man lineup that they can trust. They have a lot of oddball, different wing players and different guys they found on the scrap heap like Kyle Kuzma and Gary Trent and Taurean Prince. And while a lot of these guys are shot well and they're an elite shooting team, it feels like they haven't come together and built that chemistry, which made them a contender in the Mike Budenholzer era. So it's a tough spot to be in, and especially when, as Dell's highlighted, you trade Drew Holiday, and by principle, it leads him to your biggest rival in the playoffs, the Boston Celtics, and they win a championship. You have to look at this duo as a disappointment because you expect them to get back to the finals, but it doesn't really seem like with the way they're trending right now, they're even close.
Try to guess for me what you think Giannis's pick and roll frequency is this year with the Bucks.
I don't know his pick and roll frequency. I will guess it. I will say his screen assist numbers, he's not even top 25.
Yeah, his pick and roll frequency as a roll man. So basically him screening and rolling to the basket. What do you think percentage? How much
12.
how many of his offensive possessions are pick and roll man possessions pretty much?
I'm going to say 11%. It feels terrible.
18.
7%.
Okay. This year it's 9%.
Oh,
last year, what do you think it was?
12.
8%.
I'm going to guess 18.
About 15.
It was 7%.
Oh,
and the year before that without Dame, he was at 6%. So he's never been somebody that is going to screen and then roll to the basket. And I think him not doing that is a big part of why this fit doesn't work. Like you think at first when this duo first happened, we're like, oh, how are they going to stop this pick and roll combination? And then you come to find out those aren't even 10% of Giannis's offensive possessions. It's not even something that they are using at all. And everybody's wondering, why aren't they using it? And now we've been through 2 coaches and it still hasn't been done. And I think it's just not Giannis's game. It's not something that he feels comfortable doing. And we thought this duo was going to be like Nash and Stoudemire-esque, where it's like, okay, Giannis is just going to roll and be dominant and dunk on everybody. But a lot of his offense comes from him having the ball at the top of the key and driving to the basket, or him on a post up and waiting for the defense to collapse towards him. It's not really playing alongside another star. And then you mentioned the numbers, Dells, with when Giannis is off the court. We saw it in the playoff series last year too against the Pacers. Dame was averaging 30. Middleton was averaging like 26 a night. You know, they were all doing their thing. Right now, the pick and roll partner that Dame has the connection with is Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez, his pick and roll frequency is over 20%, you know, so I think the fit is kind of weird, and I don't want to judge this duo just off team record because I think what matters is what the record is when they play together, and they have a 62.9% win percentage. Some notable duos, Jokic and Murray, 63.2%, and this is accounting for their early years, so as of recently, it's probably higher. Celtics, Tatum and Brown, 66.7%. Anthony Davis and LeBron James, 63.1%. Curry and Draymond, 70.8%. Some of that is, you know, they played with KD and Clay too. The Heat, LeBron and Wade, 72.8%. They also played with Bosh. And the Mavericks with Kyrie and Luka, 59.8%. So the Bucks are still winning over 60% of their games with this duo. So it clearly does work. But in the playoffs, if they don't get to the conference finals, if even more embarrassingly, they lose in the first round, I think this duo, even though it doesn't have the drama surrounding it, like the Nets with Kyrie, KD, and Harden, like the Suns, like the Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George, I think it's just as big of a failure as those pairings.
Just out of curiosity, do you have their win percentage with Giannis and Drew?
I can search it up.
Because I'm not surprised that they're winning 63% of their games in the regular season. Like Giannis and Dame by themselves are good. And basically 80% of matchups are going to go in with like 2 of the 3 best players, right? Unless you're playing OKC or Boston or Cleveland, like outside of maybe 5 teams, you're going to have the best player in Giannis and one of the other 2 best players in Dame. So that alone to get you regular season wins.
With their duo, Drew Holiday and Giannis, when they play, their win percentage is 73.9%.
10% higher.